Warm and professional welcome, and welcome to another slice of the good, the bad, and the orange. Today, I've got two of my favorite people with, really, and you can hear April Mock in the background going, ha! We're working on our soundproof booth. We've got Mo.Hamideh and his sidekick Sabrina here from from Nationwide Lending. They just moved and elevated their business, and we're here to talk about, I think, a lot of the misconceptions that are going on in the marketplace about, the fear of interest rates, and why I shouldn't buy a house or why I should, and things you should plan for. And we'll have Mo talk a little bit about his favorite place to get hummus other than his own, because that's important. So you guys are in the trenches. We all are. We'll get you as our resident experts. And, of course, rates hit 7%, and they've been very volatile, up and down and up and down. And no one really understands what the Fed's doing because the Fed doesn't understand what they're doing. And so what do you see? So someone comes in, first-time buyer, their lease is coming up, and they're 32 years old, and they think, I just should never own a house. So what's the game plan? I mean, I think everyone's got to have a plan. I think when it was, the market was going vertical, no one had a plan. It was buy now, ask questions later. But now we have time to plan. And so with that, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you for having us. What I'm seeing in general is a lot of fear, a lot of misinformation that's going on in the real estate industry and the mortgage industry. And yes, it did catch many people by surprise, the speed that the market shifted. I've been in the business for 27 years. I bought my first home almost 33 years ago when my interest rate was 11.75. That was the best offer that you could find on an FHA loan, first-time home buyer, all that nice stuff, and it was 11.75. A couple of my friends and my cousins that were older than me, graduated a few years before me, they were refinancing from 15.75 down to the 11.75, and we actually went out and celebrated with pizza and beer. So
because that's all you could afford at the time, because it was still 11.75,
yes,
right?
Exactly. So investing in real estate is one of the main pillars of our economy and one of the main sources of wealth building. And delaying that event, it's only delaying your wealth, and it's only delaying you on the right path of ownership. And we have many experts, much better than me, have proved formula that home ownership is the way to go, especially in the U.S. The U.S. has one of the best mortgage programs worldwide. These programs were not created by bankers. They were actually created by consumer groups at the very beginning, since the 30s, when the HUD and the FHA programs were created to help after the Great Depression, to after World War II, and Fannie and Freddie and VA and USDA programs were created. A person and you cannot discriminate against age, a person who's 90 years old, if they qualify for a 30-year mortgage, they could get it today. That's unheard of. These programs are made to make it easier for U.S. citizens to get into home ownership. If one thing I regret that I've done in my life, that I have not held on or bought even more real estate.
Isn't that the truth? I look back at properties that I should have held on to.
Yeah.
And in the moment, especially when we're young and idealistic, we think, later, I'll do it later. I'll buy the next one, or I'll do something else. And you're right. I mean, it's that, so you buy a house and you go, well, this isn't my ideal house. Well, it doesn't have to be. And it could be your first investment house when you move to the next house. But that piece of Americana, they talk about the American dream there, is owning home ownership. it is different. We talk about mortgages in Canada, which are just wildly different. We take for granted how really easy and flexible financing is in the U.S. I didn't know that it started back in the Depression, but that's pretty remarkable too, that a country or a government or groups would think that far ahead to say we got to make home ownership the foundation of our country's wealth. And Sabrina just moved, actually, bought a house,
Yep.
second house, right?
Second house. Yeah.
See, look at that. She's like 19 and
19.
married for 5 years and has,
Wow.
and has on her second house. No, but so tell us about that. What made you move, right? Did you keep your first house?
I did keep my first house. It is since now it's a rental. I have a tenant. Thankfully, we just are now getting paid for the first time. It's really exciting. But yeah, I can't speak as much as how you guys talk about like historically what's been happening. But I can talk about what like around my age. Like I'm 24. Really, none of my friends are buying homes or even interested in buying homes. Like they're not. When I bring it up to them as like, this is you get all these benefits, it's just kind of like over their heads.
Actually, your opinion is far more important than Mo or my opinion. Because what I hear, Mo talked about the 11.75% rate, and mine was 10.185 adjusting every month to some crazy number. And they go, but that was different. That's not now. You're right in the heat of it. You own 2 properties.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
bought
I got 2 very different markets.
Yep, and yet you're on a path of wealth. I mean, so what do you tell your friends? I mean, what do they say when you say, "Oh gosh, this is great," and they just go, "I don't know."
It's almost like a commitment issue in a way. Like they think that you buy that place and that's it. You're there and you're just gonna stay there and pay your taxes and pay your HOA and nothing's exciting gonna happen. And I feel like they find excitement in rentals and moving and having a fully remodeled, brand new rental and constantly moving every year and looking for that new place, new roommates, all that stuff. So when home ownership comes, it kind of like, it plants your feet for a little bit. And I don't think they see the potential of like what could happen,
Well, yeah, I think that's interesting. This freedom that they have,
Mm-hmm.
or control, let's say, is subject to somebody else.
Yeah.
Home ownership, you just summed it up. Well, we liked our first house, but you know what? We want to buy it. We want to move.
Mm-hmm.
So you have options.
Yep.
I could sell my house. I could keep it. If I could,
limits. There is so much out there for them, and it's always confusing. What would be the medium for that knowledge to get to those people? And it will help them immensely to show them actually the road to financial freedom. You talk about freedom. Financial freedom is actually
it is the largest piece of it's the foundation for freedom. People, I think young people, and I've been there. We get sucked into wanting the biggest and the best because all of a sudden we got a job, we got lots of money, so we go buy a car, or we watches or whatever we do. We get caught up in the material side of it, and you think, well, someday I'll do that. Well, someday, as you and I know, is here in a flash.
yes.
And a little bit of strategic planning in the front side, and you can do that the rest of your life. I mean, it's and so the medium for getting that out there, though, I think is like Sabrina. It's understanding those tools, but it's that discussion, and to me, that gets to be, it's got to be simplistic. It's almost got to be, communicating in that language. If this, then that. So what does that look like? And I don't know that I know what that is yet. But there's, like I said, no matter what rates are, there's always a mechanism, and it's just getting someone to sit down and talk about it. I mean, it's that. Look how easy it is now to do an application online, and yet I think that piece is the one that's been part of our enemy as well. It's like home searching on all the websites. You never get to sit down with people and go, let's really talk about what this is going to do for you. Because home ownership is about once people buy property, it's about how does it change their life experience, good, bad, or indifferent. Someone died, I get in a smaller house, or health, or I got a big raise and I want to move into a bigger house, or I want to be a property mogul and own lots of properties. But you can't sit down and have that discussion. Then it becomes, what did the Google machine tell them? And I'll do an online application. I don't know anything about rates, but that scares me because I don't know anything about what I'm going to do after step 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Correct. I couldn't agree more. Language is extremely important. Like I have a master's degree in finance, and the finance language is extremely boring. Truly is. I mean, amortization, depreciation, appreciation. I mean, it's all boring stuff. Somebody has to really remodel it for the younger generation, where they establish those fundamentals much better than us, because there is almost a generation gap. An average loan officer's age today in the whole United States of America is 57.
Wow. I would have thought it would have been the opposite.
No, even with the newcomers, I mean, there is a generation gap, there is a language gap between us and the younger generation. I have 2 daughters in college, and I have a high schooler, and I try to instill some of these fundamentals, and I know they're bored, and I know they roll their eyes, and you know what? I do not blame them.
I think we need to come up with a Saturday morning cartoon. Remember, I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. We could do, I'm just a mortgage.
Yeah.
I mean, but you remember how that broke it down to where kids were, like I sing that, I remember that song, and it was about civics. And, same with mortgage. I mean, what's the communication? That was, of course, in the, early 70s, late 60s. But, so what's the communication? It's video, right? But again, I think that only has, it's like how in 30 seconds, how much can you tell people to get them to believe? And
that's the thing. It can't just be 30 seconds.
It can't, but you got to get them hooked in 30 seconds to to at least explore. Take step 2.
I have 2 points on this. Like, I would love for all that stuff to be taught in high school. That should be like a mandatory thing, how to balance a checkbook. What's present value of $1 versus future value of that? Nobody taught me this. I mean, I got lost for years learning. I wasn't born, raised here, so I came here to go to college. So I had to learn not only the language, even how to open a checking account, how to sign a lease, how to hook up utilities. And nobody sat with you and taught you that stuff. My daughters, born, raised here, went to school. They never had one business course. They had macroeconomics. How about teaching them also balancing a checkbook?
Yeah,
Investments.
macroeconomics, that really is going to serve you well unless you're going to go be an economist. I mean, you're right, and there's a lot of talk about financial literacy for kids or young adults, but it's just talk. I mean, and so I look at our industry, so whether it be on the why you would buy a house and why this is a good property for you to buy and what it can do for you long term, the financial aspect of it becomes just as key, because they can dream all they want about, that could be my house and I can collect rent, but they don't understand the mechanism and the economics that macroeconomics didn't teach them about that ownership and what the compounding can do for them. And yes, it's not sexy, it isn't, I checked my account and it's up 100% today and woohoo, it's that gradual piece.
It's a slow game.
It's a slow game, and one of the analogies that I saw the other day was it's a picture of Warren Buffett and his wealth and Elon Musk and his wealth, and I think that kind of sums up the 2 generations. Buffett was long game, always long game, and built magnificent wealth. Elon Musk kind of is very jet setting, cool, does stuff, can make markets go up and down, makes $400 billion shooting some rockets, and young generation goes, that's it. I'm going to drive a Tesla, and I'm going to shoot rockets, and I'm going to have $400 billion. That doesn't work. That works for such a small amount of people, where a Buffett plan, or a plan, where anyone can do it, or you just get on a plan and a system and you buy a piece of real estate and you buy the next piece and you leverage that and you buy the next piece. Anyone can do that, literally. And I think that's I think there's a disconnect with people, young generation, about I'll never own a house. I don't know how many times I've heard that.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be able to afford to own a house. Now rates are 7%. Never, ever, ever. I could never afford a $500,000 house. Oh my gosh. But that's because of the fear, which drives everything. And so for us, it's how do we help them overcome that? So what's the hottest product out today?
Renovation loans, I have to say.
Really?
So Fannie and Freddie and FHA and VA, they have something called the renovation loans, right? So
Fannie and Freddie means just conventional, normal
Correct.
financing. For those of you out there what was it Russia said? Rio Linda. Anyhow, but go ahead.
yeah, but that's one of the hottest products right now because with the hike of interest rate, payments are higher. You do have, as a borrower, you do have some obligations, whether it's your closing cost, which is actually the best time to buy right now because a lot of properties are actually these closing costs are covered by the seller, not the buyer even, right? So you're only having to come up with your down payment. But let's assume here's a couple, they managed to save 3%, 3.5% down payment. Awesome realtors negotiated the closing cost to come from the seller as a seller concession. Now they have that money, the down payment. But then they start walking into some of the homes, and some of those homes do need some love, whether it's flooring, counters, kitchens, bathrooms, and so forth. Well, you do not have to have the cash for that. There are programs actually that will build in that remodel into the transaction, and when the valuation / appraisal do happen, they have to evaluate that property as it would have been done. So the whole loan is structured on the higher value of that, and you're still only coming in with your down payment. So there are many good programs out there. I wish there is a median where young people get to see and hear all the benefits that they have under their fingertips.
Well, I think it's actually, that's probably a great way, testimonials, which are tough enough to get in writing, let alone on video. But, if you took the 30-something and unders and that you could find that did a renovation loan and got them to do a 30-second commercial on what it did for them. And I know that, it's a learning curve, right? Because you're going to counsel people through that, even if they're seasoned, understanding all that. But I think those stories that are, factual, actual events are what might get a few people to think about it. But, it takes a lot of time and effort. But you're right, people need to see the benefit of that. So renovation loans, I would thought you would have come up with some new, latest scheme to get to make payments lower over time. I know there's been some talk about
The buy down.
no, I was thinking of there's a loan where it's kind of tied to your equity and your checking, and it floats up and down. I mean,
Correct.
there's those, although I think that's
That's an Australian product
Yeah.
originally that started back in the 90s, where you would have to have all of your monies into some kind of a checking account that your mortgage is tied into it. And by theory, if you have a balance in there, it's lowering the daily interest that's accruing on the actual loan, because they applied whatever money towards the loan to lower that, but then it brings it back available. So it has some weird mechanism to it,
sounds like it.
and it wasn't fully adopted by many people. Even banks was confusing. The Dodd-Frank Act has heavy servicing laws and guidelines, so it really complicated it, a lot of it. But there are some benefits to it. It's not even that big in Australia.
Yeah. So Sabrina mentioned buy downs. Talk quickly about the difference, the benefits, pros and cons of a 2-1 buy down versus a permanent buy down. And what would you recommend? I know that's depends on situation, but if you make kind of a generalized statement, because I think people think of them as the same, and they're not.
They're totally different, and you need, and it does differ on the situation itself. You shouldn't be selling fake hopes, which is what a lot of people are selling right now. With the 3-2-1 buy down, it means you are going to have a 3-year of lower payment. It escalates every year until you go back to the normal
Right.
level payment. And the only reason this product was originally created, it's only when you have a life event that's about to happen. Let's say you have a child, 5-year-old, you know for a fact next year they're gonna go to school. Now you are going to save $1,500 on daycare or $750 on daycare. So say, I would like to have the lower payment for 1, 2, 3 years until that event happens, and our loan to be paid off within that period. You are still going to qualify on the higher payments. So
Right.
that program does not make a borrower qualify for a higher home. A permanent buy down, you would have to calculate the cost benefit analysis for you before you dump your money into the lender's pockets and not know what your long-term plan is. What if you're moving out of that house? What if all the market indicators saying that we're about to have a lower interest rate and most likely you will be refinancing? You flushed that money down the toilet, literally. The other component that a lot of people do not look at is the mortgage insurance. So by theory, in conventional loans specifically, if you do not have 20% down payment, there is a little insurance that have to be injected into the transaction. But mortgage insurance is not necessarily only monthly, so it could be paid all upfront. It could be paid all upfront by the lender. It's called lender-paid mortgage insurance. It could be paid half upfront, half monthly, or it could be paid all monthly. So if you want to qualify for more of a home as an immediate goal, and your realtor had negotiated some seller concessions, you might be better off just actually eliminating the whole MI, the mortgage insurance, and then you will be able to qualify for more because now your debt-to-income ratio is more open, right? The 3-2-1 buy down or the 2-1 buy down is very tricky, and unfortunately a lot of lenders are not selling it correctly and for the right situation. For example, your realtor negotiated a few $1,000s seller concessions, and now the lender has the choice to tell you, okay, here's the 3-2-1 buy down, it will lower your payment maybe $300. Well, the seller concessions, if they're divided over the 24 months, that's more than $300.
Yeah.
Why don't you just apply them towards the closing costs? Now the borrower is only coming in with a down payment when the whole market is indicating now we're going to have lower payments and lower interest rates next year. You have to run cost-benefit analysis before you advise, and you have to know all the variables. And unfortunately, a lot of lenders do not have these tools or even qualified individuals to do so. So it is extremely important for you to pick who you want to work with, ask about them, and I highly, highly recommend shop, compare, get to know your true options.
It's not all about the rate. Rates are competitive, but an eighth or a quarter and someone gives you bad advice costs you far more than, not saying that you're not the most competitive also, but you gotta look at the whole picture. We get that all the time. Well, I saw bank rates at this, so I can go to XYZ online mortgage company, and we all break into sweat because we know that deal isn't going to close on time, and it isn't going to be the rate that you think it's going to be, and the rules are different in every state. You're licensed in 62 states, but so better as well as anybody. It's not the same. The closing process is different, and so they bring all the time. I'm going to use my local bank in whatever state, and we go, don't they have a correspondent or something, because it's not like you think. There's you can be in you can be in default if they don't report, and someone, says, I want an LSU, or I want a prequel, or I want, and on our form. And so it is, I think that's one thing I've learned since moving here, is you gotta use local is so important. The rules are just so good.
True.
Even if, and especially with those evil big banks, when you call in and your loan officer's in Florida, and they go, well, I don't know what that form is, I don't know that. It's all the same. No, it's not. So, where is your favorite Middle Eastern restaurant? Not your house, because
Not my house.
People can't come there on their own.
The best one, I think, it's called Golden Bakery and Restaurant on Scottsdale Road and
Maybe
McKellips.
202. Yeah, McKellips.
Yeah, it's actually Scottsdale Road and McKellips.
South
It's a hole in a wall, yummy food, no questions asked, and the menu is vast. There isn't something called Middle Eastern food.
I know, that's
it's
the
a
pasty
marketing-
white guy from Minnesota going, that's all Middle Eastern food, and, you're rolling your eyes, but I'm used to that, and of course, my wife would roll her eyes, because she's Egyptian, and she'd say, no, we're not, oh, I'm not that,
Yeah.
we're not the same. And I'm going, okay, so.
And it is not
No,
the
no,
same.
it
It's
isn't.
just like saying, I ate European food.
Well,
Did you eat Italian? Did you eat Spanish food? Did you eat Greek food?
And there is no American food,
It's,
Burgers and hot dogs.
Well,
is that?
I like it. I like American food though. I like the infusion of a lot of the America just actually great. Like, I'm a foodie. I love food, and I love going to California specifically. Seattle is a huge foodie town. Portland, Oregon, if you've never been there, go and try some of the foods and the infusion of foods that comes out of that little
Mo, doesn't
town.
Green Corner deserve an honorable mention too?
Green Corner.
Yeah.
You do it. I don't know. if
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
Sabrina,
It's
you've
good.
been quiet here. I think the wrap-up is your last, 12 minutes? I don't know what we got left, but
yeah, about that.
about that. See, it's all Sabrina now.
Yeah, okay.
So
It's
you're
a
on,
Sabrina show.
it's a
Welcome.
Sabrina show.
Welcome. Yeah, Green Corner, they were only in the East Valley, and they just opened on Scottsdale and Shea finally, which is exciting. The best shawarma you'll ever have, shawarma sandwich, whether you like steak or chicken, they do a good job, I must say.
I've tried them.
Yeah.
I've tried them a couple of times. Sabrina actually brought me a
Mhm.
sandwich, and I really enjoyed it. But
Good answer.
yeah, no, really, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them, but some people cook things that are not theirs,
Mhm.
and we, being Palestinians, and we know the pace, the exact equilibrium of what that sandwich should look like. We're always like testy about, no, that's not a shawarma now. You know, so.
I have learned that over the past decade that it's not all the same. Don't you dare say
No.
that. It's the nuances,
Yeah.
right? I will hear yelling at a YouTube cooking show when someone's claims they're cooking X, and then there's this yelling at the screen, and I'm going, what are you talking about? You don't make it like that. That's wrong. What are they thinking? And it's like,
Have you seen that video where like two Italians watching a non-Italian cook pasta, and then they break the pasta,
Yeah.
and those guys do faint? They don't break them; they just put them half the pot.
well, you can do a whole show on cooking, but so Mo lives in Greyhawk. You're close here, and you, where did you end up?
So now I'm by Desert Ridge. So like
see.
Tatum, yeah. So the first place that I bought, it was very inexpensive at the time. You can't find anything in the area now. The first home I bought was off Cave Creek in the 101.
Yep.
And it was a tri-level condo with a garage, which was nice. But it was $285,000. So we went above asking at the time because it was May of 2021.
Wow.
And thankfully we got it. We put some work into it. We lived in it for 9 months and put, new countertops, paint, bathroom, all that stuff. We actually ended up, this is something I wanted to mention, we're talking about mortgage insurance. After 9 months, I just called up my servicer, which was Chase. I called Chase Bank and I was like, I want to lose my mortgage insurance. I think the value of my property has increased because of the work I've done. They said, okay, what have you done? I said, kitchen, bathroom, whatever. they didn't even want to charge me for an appraisal. They said, we'll just send a broker out there to get an opinion on your home. It'll cost $150. It's like, perfect. I lost my mortgage insurance after that a month later, which was $250 off my payment.
Less than a year.
Less than a year.
So, Youth of America, the 24-year-old bought a house in 9 months, turned it around, dropped her mortgage insurance, bought another property, is well on her way to being a real estate mogul.
Well,
That's
What was your
amazing.
down payment?
So it was 3%. It was the minimum conventional loan. We did a 97% loan to value. So we did 3% at the time, and then
So you picked up 17% equity by the sweat and your DIY that you did.
and I got lucky with my rate too. Of course, it was three. It's still 3 1/4.
Yeah.
So 3.25%. I was sad when I bought this last home this past August.
What's your rate now?
It's 5.5, so I really can't complain.
What's a couple?
That was the rate at the time though, so it's,
Yeah.
it was a little sticker shock,
And I bet your lender's preparing to do a refi at some point.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, what a great story, because you didn't come in with 20%
No,
down.
I didn't have
do anything.
20% down like most people my
Yep,
age.
and yet you bought a house, it appreciated, and I say even buying today, so maybe you're not gonna do it in 9 months. But, we're in, I think the thing that is most overlooked by the public in Arizona is we are, by expert standards, short about 75,000 housing units valley-wide because of lack of building and lack of people moving out.
Right.
Building permits, I was just looking at the report, building permits have dropped dramatically. So builders have all pulled back, which in the short run, you get why they do that. We're not gonna discount, we're not gonna overbuild. In the long run, that's horrible for the pressure on our inventory. So, we look at it and you buy a house now and maybe it's 6 months or 12 months or a year and a half that before you start accelerating. But remember, nothing's dropped below the rate of inflation, which in Arizona is argued to be somewhere between, I guess depending on what you look at, but it's upwards of 11%. We would all take 11% housing appreciation any day of the week. And so those pieces, no one talks about when you talk about home ownership in a market that has normalized. But there's all these other factors to me that say buy, buy, buy. Creative financing, meaning, short term or, average list to sell price is 97% now. Well, fine, there's 3% there. What do you do with 3%? Well, closing costs. What are we gonna do? You can get a good lender who's gonna say, we're gonna use it X, Y, and Z. We do no cost refis, maybe you gotta pay for an appraisal, like you said, down the road. And now you drop your rate in a year by, no one does it unless it's a percent, but you probably drop a percent out if you know where we're at now. And you've started a plan of building equity. And look, you moved from, basically, the only thing there was Costco.
Yep,
'cause that's-
literally.
To Desert Ridge, where the hip people all live. And next year you can move to Scottsdale.
What do you think your house is worth right now?
The one I just bought, or the
No.
I feel like it has to be close to the 400s because we have 3 bedrooms, and there's only one line of them that have 3, but the 2 bedrooms are closing at like 360, 350, depending on like how much work they've had done.
So you bought it for
probably-
285.
Correct.
Let's assume it's worth only 385, and your initial investment was less than $9,000
Correct.
down payment.
That's why I preach this to my friends.
Not-
I'm telling them,
not
don't be
bad.
scared.
And you know what it takes? You look at, you got great advice. You have a lot of knowledge. I mean, you've learned from the guru, but you get a good real estate agent and help you buy a 3-bedroom instead of a 2-bedroom, right? Made that decision. There's less of those, so that always makes there be higher demand.
Yep.
You've got a financing plan, and you're well on your way to maybe it'll be PB next year. Should call us from PB. Sabrina and PB.
If I won the lottery.
What I give credit to Sabrina is, regardless her age and previous experience, she asks questions. She's not scared of knowledge. So to all the young people out there, just get to know what's out there for you. Ask the right people the right questions, and then make up your mind. Nobody's holding a gun to you.
Yeah, and there are no stupid questions. You know, that is the thing. If you, I mean, asking what APR is, there's nothing wrong. I mean, that is absolutely, educate yourself. There's plenty of people that will educate you. I know that we probably are, it's time to wrap up. Jasmina is shaking her head. I'd like to thank Mo and Sabrina for being here. And in our, on the podcast, you can find it on your local favorite hosting channel. We'll have their information if you're looking for some financing counseling, just counseling even. And maybe, you know, maybe they'll take you to lunch in a good place. Give them a call. Follow us on YouTube as well. Like, subscribe, comment. Is that right? Did I do that right? Okay, thank you.
Good job.
And we'll see you all soon on the good, the bad, and the orange.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.